At the beginning of the first episode of this story, we are shown a dangerous scene, a country called the Empire. The soldiers of that country are fighting against their enemies. The opponent enemies are not so weak. They kill many of their enemies. Then the main character of the story appears in front of us, whose name is Tanya. A platoon lieutenant, Lieutenant Commander Tanya Dugrachev, is leading her platoon during the war with the Republic Army. Tanya is also known as the Fairy of the Battlefield. She explains that this is a cursed world busy with war. She explained that her fatherland is known as the Empire. It is blessed with vast military and industrial power. Upon the Empire Army's instruction, the Army is carrying out Plan 315, which basically means they are causing the delaying actions. At the headquarters, Vice Director of Strategy and Operations, Eric von Rerugen, informs Deputy Strategy and Operations Brigadier Kurt von Ruderdorf about the situation on the battlefield. On the battlefield, everyone is so tired that they refuse to eat anymore. Corporal Krust and Harold had refused Tanya's order, so they were sent back. The following day, Corporal Serebriakov searches for Krust and Harold. She discovers that they have been transferred to a safe place for one day. In the officers' meeting, the company commander tells everyone about the rescue plan, and Corporal Serebriakov volunteers herself despite Tanya's approval. The enemies have already destroyed enough of the Empire's army. Tanya takes matters into her own hands and fights alone. This surprises everyone. Tanya informs everyone to retaliate as soon as the war is over. At the Republic capital, the enemies are discussing Tanya and her powers. Tanya is thinking about how she got there. She remembers that it started 10 years ago. As we can see, a man is being told that he has to improve his performance or he will be fired. At the train station, a man pushes his boss in front of the train. Suddenly, everything freezes. A self-proclaimed god known as Being X starts talking to him. God tells him to repent for his lack of faith, but the man is having none of it. The man refuses to accept and pray to him, asking for help, but God warns him to accept and pray to him. In a rage, God gives the man a second chance and tells him that he will accept God in his second life. In 1913, a baby named Tanya was born in the outskirts of the imperial capital of Beirut. Tanya was a result of God's refusal to exist. Tanya was born at the time of World War I. Tanya was abandoned by her parents. She was given to a poor church outside the city. During a routine physical checkup, her abilities were discovered and she was labeled a mage. Tanya always thought the act of war was wicked in itself, but the Empire was gripped by madness that resulted in wars. Although the power of magic used to exist back then, Tanya was taken away by the army after they heard of her being a mage. As an Imperial Army officer, Tanya volunteered to go into the battle lines. Her main goal was to protect herself and survive. She wanted to get her revenge for being X. She was living her best life in the army. Even during her training, she got the chance to be a teacher. One of her students mocked her because of her age and height, but he soon apologized. After she graduated, she realized one thing, that everything can happen in this world. Returning to the present in 1922, in the Norden region, Tanya got the chance to see the actual battle during her training. During the battle, she was promoted to second lieutenant and was given a special label as Fairy 8. During the battle, Tanya was attacked. When she asked for permission to attack back, it was denied, so she decided to self-destruct herself. This surprised everyone. When she finally woke up at the hospital, she was treated with special care and given a silver badge for her services at the age of 9. When her wounds healed, after some days, she got deployment orders. While going to talk to the commander, all Tanya wanted was to not be sent again to the front lines. Tanya was relieved when she got orders to go to General Supply to test the new prototype. A prototype is a new type of computation jewel. She is testing the Type 95 prototype high in the air at the testing unit. Due to some defects, the experiment failed again, resulting in a blast. Irritated by the doctor's attempt to convince her that the device was fine, but she couldn't handle it, Tanya calls it defective junk and lets him be muted for some time. The doctor is still not ready to accept that his experiment is nothing more than a failure. Sick of doctors failing experiments, Tanya writes a report about the experiment and requests a transfer to the front lines again. Her request is approved and she is allowed to leave. This makes her happy, so she decides to take a nap. Being X approaches her again after 10 years. Being X tells Tanya about the loss of faith she has. Being X tells her that he blesses Tanya, but Tanya does not care as she does not need to. This wakes her up, and she sees a card written with a message that God has blessed her. The doctor tells her to try Type 95 one more time. According to the doctor, it will succeed this time for sure. The doctor claims that he has God's blessing. It turns out that Being X has just set her up. Everything stops again when Being X gives her two choices. Either she prays and lives, or she's about to die. This makes Tanya agree and she finally makes a wish. Therefore, the experiment turned out to be a success. Tanya calls the Type 95 prototype a cursed jewel. In 1924, at the Rhine Theater, Tanya prays to the creator and asks for help. In order to gain popularity, it is important for her to show that she actually cares for her soldiers. She comes up with a plan. She decides to make Corporal Serebriakov an officer. So she goes to the corporal, who tells her to report to headquarters. At the HQ, everyone is discussing the Rhine situation, while Tanya is on her way. She has now been off the front lines for 6 months and is able to resume her studies. She loves the life she is living. Colonel Zetur, Strategy and Operations Vice Director, met her in the library one fine day. He invites her to have a chat, and she gladly accepts. She is taken in as an opportunity to ace the army. Colonel Zetur asks her opinion about the war situation, and according to her, this is a world war. Listening to Tanya's thoughts, Colonel Zetur is very impressed and tells her to write everything down in a formal proposal and send it back to him. Colonel Zetur gives the proposal to his senior. Captain Unger gets a chance to talk to her in the coffee shop. He tells her that her own daughter is also of Tanya's age, and he can send Tanya to the front battle lines. Tanya is very happy, as she is progressing and winning the hearts of everyone. A new meeting is going on in the Imperial Strategic Operations Conference Room to discuss the effects of the creation of the Rapid Response Mage Battalion. They gave this task to Tanya, to form a new battalion and lead it. She tries to flee from duty but fails. The colonel gives her the charge and warns her to be careful. On the senior order, Second Lieutenant Victoria Serebriakov joins her. Tanya regrets supporting her but obediently follows her orders. Along with her, First Lieutenant Aisheskuber Klein Balhem also joins Tanya on the colonel's order to assist her. They start off by making a poster and getting applicants. Tanya asks about the status, so she shows her an example. Most applicants are unable to differentiate between reality and illusions, and eventually fail. Tanya asked for a month to train the people, which she was granted at all costs. Everyone reaches the training ground, and we give them a 36-hour drill non-stop. After the drill is over, she exceeds the time limit for the next 3 days and forbids the use of magic, or they will face consequences. Tanya continuously watches every soldier while they train. After the battalion has finished 2 drills, she asks them to leave if they won't, but no one does. After 1 month, the battalion is fully trained. Tanya informs everyone that they will no longer be referred to as maggots, but rather as Imperial mages. Lieutenant Reruge meets Tanya to have a one-on-one conversation. Tanya is being told about her promotion, which she gladly accepts. 203 Aerial Mage has been assembled for 1 month, although Tanya thinks they need more training. According to the new orders, every mage will be using the Type 97 prototype. The colonel hints at teaching Dakai to Tanya, indicating it's time to have a fight with the Dukedom of Dakai. Tanya is currently working in the southeast to fight with the Dakians. The enemies are informing her of the lack of an air force. Although it seems stupid to her, she has to accept it. Tanya goes to her battalion and tells them about the live fire training exercise she was given by the Dakians as her birthday gift. Tanya quickly devises a plan and divides the group into 3 divisions. Tanya decides to go to Dakian's HQ and kill everyone except the commander with her battalion. After she is done achieving her goals, on her special orders, everyone returns to the capital, giving the enemy time to come up with a plan. Everyone in the HQ is satisfied with the battalion and their hard work, so they move on to future planning. As the sun began to rise over the camp base, Tanya stood at attention, her uniform neatly pressed and her medals glistening in the morning light. She surveyed her battalion, taking pride in their unwavering dedication and hard work. The last day was hard, but their efforts paid off. Tanya's voice was heard, praising the bravery and skill of her soldiers. At the south end, Tanya is praising everyone for their hard work and telling them about the transfer order she received. They have now moved to the north. At the point of Norden, Tanya expects her battalion to use new tricks. According to Tanya, the war should be over, but it's not. Rather, the world is escalating towards war. The Empire has now dealt with the Alliance capital to the north. The Alliance still fears that they might end up like Dacia, but they still decide to fight for their fatherland. The 203 Magi are surprised to see 2 battalions attacking them. Tanya decides to help her group through when the news reaches Imperial. They order the mages to wipe out the attackers because reinforcements are on their way. Tanya dismisses the request for reinforcements and commands her battalion to fight. Everything stops, indicating the presence of Being X during this time again, but Tanya has had enough of him. Tanya aims at the Alliance's communication spot. As she shoots, the commander decides to flee, saving their lives. Tanya arrives at the camp base and she is praised for her efforts. The next day, Alliance gets their family to a save point where the colonel says goodbye to their daughter Mary. Mary has gifted her father the latest submachine gun as a Christmas gift. Tanya was able to guess a secret mission only a few knew about. Tanya and her battalion were told to go to Orsay Fjord and make a surprise landing. At the Orsay Fjord, the enemies have already set up their weapons, and they take it very lightly. Tanya is given only 30 minutes to capture the area, or she will have to retreat and come back defeated. Tanya motivates everyone as they jump to make their landing. The Alliance suddenly notices the loss of contact with the patrol ship. The battalion arrives and a fight starts. Their main goal is to destroy their weapons. Tanya and her group managed to kill everyone, so they withdrew as the battalion celebrated their victory. Tanya took a moment to reflect on the events that had led them to that point. She felt a mixture of relief, pride, and determination. The successful mission in the Ors Fjord boosted their morale and proved their capabilities as a formidable force. Tanya takes the commander's gun as her own Christmas gift. The Ors City mission was a success. Tanya and her group return to the medical camp, and there she tells them about the next fight with the Republic and Irene. As the Republic was the first to attack, they destroyed the supply of food and water for the Empire soldiers. Tanya and her group are told to go and handle the situation. She has the evacuation orders. Although, according to her, it will be more difficult as there are civilians too. She decides to go away to save the civilians. The Empire has launched an evacuation order, and anyone who stays after that would be considered a Republican soldier. During the fight, Commander Wessie is told to leave as he cannot bring himself to kill innocent people. As the Republic saw the situation against her, they used civilian life as an excuse to withdraw from it. The prisoners are taken to safety. At the HQ, they are going through laws written by Tanya, as everyone is surprised by her talent. A few days later, Tanya is on her way to the Imperial Strategic Headquarters. Tanya is thinking about her decision to eliminate only the enemy mage. She meets with Captain Uger. She tells him about the situation, and as he owns her, she recommends him for a rear guard position. He agrees to tell her about the request to the Railway Division for emergency transport from the combat zone. She calls it a great plan as she wants the war to end as soon as possible. Tanya further informs Captain Uger that she will be told to make the preparations. It is extremely difficult to supply food and water to the front lines as a result of the Republican attack. So they come up with a plan. They have to avoid defeat by forcing their enemies to fight back. This is also known as a decision battle. In the year 2924, at Rhine, Tanya decides to fall back but then commands everyone to continue fighting. It is now time for Operation Fog and Run to take place. They will falsely retreat and let the enemies move ahead. Tanya is congratulated at the headquarters for her first planned victory. Tanya and the colonel get to talk about the false propaganda being distributed by the third country. Soon enough, Tanya gets back to work to put the second operation, Shock and Awe, into action. In this operation, it will leave the enemies without a leader. As Tanya is thinking of a new tactic to use, the doctor comes in and tells her about the creation of V1. This is a new type of recon unit. The doctor is very proud of this and explains everything to Tanya. Tanya is not that surprised because it has not been tested yet. Tanya heads back and tells everyone about the plan. She also tells them if they succeed, it would end the war. Everyone at the headquarters is also waiting patiently for tomorrow. It is now 1925. All preparations are done, and the battalion is on its way to launch. Everyone prays for their victory. On the other hand, the Republic Army ship is about to reach the port. Tanya and her battalion reach out and are given their task commands. On May 25, 1925, a meeting was going on with the officials about the current situation at the Imperial headquarters. During the meeting, all the army officers were waiting for the messenger. On the other hand, Tanya and her group started a battalion and were able to complete it. This news brings happiness and joy within them and also at the headquarters, but the 3DR operation is still going on. On Rhine's left wing, enemies are marching forward and are surprised to detect 0 enemies. The Empire's army has planted bombs in the area. A blast occurs, killing most of the soldiers of the Republic Army. Soon the army discovers that they are surrounded from all 4 sides. They all get killed, an indication of the success of Operation Lock and Pin. Tanya is informed about the operation's success, and she explains everything to her battalion. But Tanya motivates them for Operation 177 as they are on their way. In this operation, they have to kill all those who try to retreat. The Republic has gotten mages' help from the Alliance. 2 battalions of the Alliance attack 203 mages, and Grants get shot. As both enemies fight, everything stops again, and God appears again and takes one of the enemy's bodies. In a rage, Tanya kills him with his own gun, but he attacks her and blasts after seeing all this. The enemies decide to retreat. It was time for the last operation. After 15 days of cleanup operations, the Republic's capital accepts defeat on July 10, 1925. At the headquarters, everyone is enjoying and celebrating their success. Tanya goes to the old poor church where she was dropped off. While everyone is enjoying themselves, Tanya decides to sit in her office. Second Lieutenant Victoria Serebriakov joins her and tells her about the boys doing a barbecue at the Republic Beach. While having a conversation, Tanya realizes that the Republic army is deciding to attack. Tanya tells Serebriakov to gather everyone as they are leaving. Tanya requests permission, but she is not granted it. So Tanya tells the officer that she will use her powers and that he should not interfere. Tanya goes to the changing room to cry her heart out. At the HQ, Tanya decides to speak to the strategist, but they are all busy, so she heads back. Her battalion is tired of waiting for her outside. Tanya gets a chance to talk to one of the strategists. She talks to him about everything as a soldier comes and tells him about the attack that is going to take place. At the dinner, two colonels were discussing the Free Republic Army. On August 15th, Tanya and her group continue their task. Tanya is thinking about the countries that have started to fear the Empire because of the recent attacks. As the season ends, Mary volunteers herself to go in on the front line. She prays to God as she makes her declaration as a volunteer. And that's the end of the video. As always, if you liked what you saw, subscribe to the channel. I'll be uploading a lot of videos just like this one, and I'll see you at the next one. Till then, bye-bye.